Matt Barry of the Bruins Benders podcast coming to join us. And let me try out this segue on you, Matt.
Okay.
Bruins Benders podcast. Benders typically play on the fourth line. Bruins fourth line bending over the rest of the league. What do you think?
That's pretty clever. That's
Not
pretty
bad.
clever.
That's
Yeah.
not bad. This line, though, I mean, what the heck, dude? It's way better than their second and third lines, and you could argue better than the first line, especially based on the numbers. Where has this come from?
Yeah, it's their best line, and it's one of the best lines in hockey right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers they're putting up, every single shift seems to be the same, where they're dominating the opponent. Last night, again, early in the game, Cole Koepka gets them on the board. It's good work down below the circles. It's, beating your man one-on-one. It's winning battles. It's getting to the net. He has a nice little redirection for a goal. And, it starts the ball rolling. And, that thank goodness for this line. Or they even said it last night on the broadcast. They could have been 0-4 going into that game last night if it wasn't for the fourth line. Now, here's what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't break it up to satisfy the need to try to make the other lines right. I wouldn't touch it at all. In fact, I'd bump them up to the third line and then figure out your fourth line. But I would not touch that line if it means trying to, I wouldn't take a Kastelik and put him on another line, or a Beecher and I wouldn't do that. I'd keep that line the way it is and figure out the rest.
You and Claude Julien, man, because that was always a staple. And I said it to no one in particular last night. If I had to rank my top 5 Bruins teams of my lifetime, so really the 2000s, 3 of them had a really good fourth line. And I'm thinking about the Merlot line days, 11, 13, 14, where it was some combination typically of Paille, Campbell, Thornton, and they were so valuable. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, such a hockey guy or anything, but like they were so valuable. And Claude's teams were not more talented than most of the teams they beat, but they rolled 4 lines at you that could forecheck the hell out of you. So I'm going to get ahead of myself here, Matt. But how promising is that for a Bruins team that is obviously struggling in the top 6 or the middle 6 or both, that they have a dependable fourth line that at least is doing the right things? Like, I know the numbers won't stay like this the whole year, but they are playing with the right habits. How valuable is that for this team?
Well, it's a difference maker, and you're right. I mean, that's where you win the cups, is in your third and fourth lines, and they have a fourth line that's as good as any. It's the best fourth line in the league right now. I mean, numbers wise and eyeball test wise. I mean, it just is. So that's a good thing to have. The issue that they have, obviously, is that their top 6 they're thin there. And, putting Frederick back there last night did make a difference, but Frederick's not a top 6 forward on a Stanley Cup winning team. He just isn't. So, but if it's a patchwork thing for 8 or 10 games, and until you try to figure it out, then I think he'll be fine there. And he was last night. It was good. It was much better. But the problem is that you're a winger away from solidifying the top 6. And then once that happens, I've been clamoring for a while now, is Frederick, Geekie, Coyle is the line. I mean, that should be the third line on the team. And if you're a Stanley Cup winning team, and if, Coyle can't be a second line center, Frederick can't be on the second line, Geekie can't be on the second line, but that can be an excellent third line. And if you can get that right, then I think you have something. But boy, that's asking a lot to try to go find a second line right wing.
And I want to ask you this question, kind of broken up into 2 pieces here, about Trent Frederick. And the question is, what should be Trent Frederick's role on this team? What does Trent Frederick think his role should be on the team? Are they the same thing?
I think Frederick has done a better job of filling his role. Like, he was confused before. I mean, there were times last year where he would pick fights when they shouldn't have been picked, and he wasn't picking his spots correctly. And he did put up, 18 goals, whatever it was. I mean, he had a good offensive, productive year, but you can fall in love with that. And then you can put him in a position where he gets exposed. And I think if he stays on the second line for a while, he's going to get exposed. I mean, you have to keep him on the third line. He's a third line winger who protects his teammates. He's willing to fight. He's willing to play hard, and he's willing to be physical. And then he's found a way to maximize his offensive output. That's it. Like, that's it. So now Trent Frederick is a third line winger on your team, and you're pretty good if he's a third line winger. That's fine. So, but you can't go further than that.
Defensively, this was supposed to be the backbone of the team. Best D-corps in the NHL. Everyone was saying it. Biggest D-corps in the NHL. Doesn't matter that half of them don't hit. They're really big. And you figured out goaltending. You got your guy locked up 5 games in, and it's looking pretty shaky there on the defensive end. I know it was all special teams last night, 3 power play goals for Colorado. But how have you felt just about the defensive acumen of this team so far?
Yeah, just, 4th worst expected goals in the league, and that's just not what this defensive core should be. It should be the strength of the team.
Yeah.
Should be the defensive core. You put a lot of money into it. You have talented players there. I've always said, though, that they have, like I just said about the physicality, like they have too many like players there. Like Lindholm and Lowry are too similar. They're just, Peak and Carlo are kind of similar. Like, I don't know if they can be as physical as you want them to be. And you can add Zadorov all you want, but I haven't seen a ton from him that way. Like, I just haven't seen a ton of it. An occasional hit here or there, but I haven't really seen it a ton from him. So, look, it's going to be a good defensive group. You have to figure out who's the top pair with McAvoy and stick with it. Yeah. That's another thing. You can't just keep changing the guys around and develop any chemistry with your partner. So Zadorov was there, and Lowry was there, and Lindholm was there, and it just keep that sort of carousel going back and forth. And I just think you have to stay with a pairing for 3-4 weeks and see if they can develop some chemistry, and then go from here. I mean, I like what I see from Lowry. Lowry is a good player, and I think not this year, but I think down the road, you're going to have to make a decision on Lowry or Lindholm.
I know
think you're going to have to.
I know.
I mean, it's obvious what it is, but I think that you're going to have to make that decision because they're going to be too similar
too much
in nature.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Lowry is going to make some good money. So,
and I think you and Smitty talked about this on one of the post games. Is like the Lindholm contract is not that bad.
No, it's not.
It was long term, but it's what, 6.5?
6.5. Yeah.
You can offload that to somebody.
Sure.
And we're now what, 3? This is the third
year, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? He's been pretty good. Like, last game he was not. Like before the Colorado game, that game before that he was not. But the other 4 games he's been pretty good. Last night he was good. He scored, had an assist and a goal in 13 seconds. Like, he's playing much better already this year. So he's a good player. He is. And at 6.5, 2 years from now, when the cap goes up, maybe it goes up 10 million, then it gets even better. So yes, you can offload him for sure. And they're going to need some forwards down the road because Marchand's, getting near the end, and Coyle's getting near the end, and you haven't really been able to develop forwards. So you're going to have to sign or trade for some.
Yeah, this is really starting to see where those first round picks being traded away, hurts the Bruins. And I'm not going to sit here and be like they shouldn't have done that, because at the time I agreed with those moves. The Rick Nashes, the Taylor Halls, the Bertuzzi, I think was a rounder. Like
Lindholm.
I'm okay with those. Lindholm, that's another one. And speaking of, so Montgomery, I hate the way he just starts shifting lines willy-nilly, it feels like, especially in the postseason. And he has done something out of the box, specifically last night, that I'm actually here for. It's kind of sad that they have to do it, but that second power play unit, rolling out 2 defensemen out there, Lindholm and Lowry, because if you look at the rest of that second unit, it's pretty bad. But it works. Lowry with a beautiful assist to Charlie Coyle for that power play goal. How do you feel about the 2 defensemen on the second power play unit?
I loved it. I loved it because, like you said, it's too thin in the forward group. So why put an extra forward in there? Who the hell is it going to be? Like,
Who
so,
do you have
you
that's
know,
passing better,
right.
handling the puck better than Low
You
Rod?
don't. And I'll tell you, Matt Patra just, hit the puck looked like a grenade in his stick last night. He just wasn't playing well at all. He just didn't make the right decisions, wasn't making them quick enough, losing the puck. So, I like Lindholm and Laura. They both can carry the puck. They both can pass the puck. And Lindholm also had a great pass to Pasternak for the goal. So they can both pass. They can both move it. They both sort of offensively stronger than defensively. So I like it. I think you should keep with it.
All right, I'm gonna find a delicate way to ask this, but what the hell was up with Eddie Olczyk last night?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'll
What
tell you
was
what.
that?
It started back with Pierre Maguire. I think they're pontificators. They're just sensationalists. Everything is the most incredible thing they've ever seen in their lives, and
Oh, so
it's too
weird.
much. And there were times in that where he was talking, and the play's going for like a minute.
I thought
Like,
he was, like, having a stroke. He just I
yeah,
don't
he
even
was
know if he knew what
right.
he was saying
He
half.
was talking about himself
Yes,
and
a lot.
Sid Crosby and being drafted and all this other stuff with Lemieux and whoever, Kirk Muller and all this stuff. And I'm just like, no one knows what you're talking about, number one. And any generation from after me has no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
And they just weren't talking about the action. And then there was, of course, the different hits that they had, like the Elias Lindholm hit, I thought was clean.
Not a
Just caught him in a weird spot.
Yep.
Carlo had a cross check, but it really wasn't like a two-handed, like, just crush him kind of cross check. That hit him kind of right too. And he was typical. And then Marchand with the flop, which he did sell. He 100% sold,
Yep.
and it probably should have been embellishment, but
Yeah.
they went on and on and on about it. And I was just like, it's too much. I mean, less is more in announcing.
It was so bizarre. There was that one time where he was like, "I don't know if I'm trending or spiraling or,"
But you were
and
spiraling.
Kenny Albert's like, I believe
Yeah.
that's trending."
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it is? And they just, like, kept going. I'm
He
like,
kept
"Shut
going.
up. What is
Yeah.
this?"
Right.
It did remind me of, like, Pierre just back in the day, just rattling off the junior team
Yeah.
for some.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care where he grew up and what difference does it make? Like, honestly, I can look at eliteprospects.com and see all that shit.
It's so
See
weird.
all that stuff.
Oh, it was so weird. And, like, I don't know. ESPN is still, I think, a worse broadcast overall. At least the TNT studio show to me is better than what ESPN has out with Subban and Messier, who hasn't said anything
Right.
interesting in his life. I mean,
Right.
like, it's weird. Is it a good spot for the NHL right now, or is it a bad spot for media? I'm still trying to figure it out. At least it's more coverage, right?
It's more coverage, and that's what they need, but they've never seemed to figure it out, and I feel like the networks really never take it 100% seriously. And I know that ratings aren't the same as the NFL, the NBA, and all that, but it just doesn't seem like it's taken that seriously and sort of a secondhand production a
Yeah.
lot, and that's what bothers me about it. And of course, we have Nesson where Brick is great, and I think Judd Surratt's doing a better job, but this Nesson has its issues. I get a seizure every time, every third game trying to watch the game. Like, it's just unbelievable.
And Nesson really doesn't like to be entertaining. I think that's something that's instilled in them. They really like to be boring.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, hockey coverage in general seems to trend that way versus some of the other sports that we were talking about. All right, before I get you out of here, Matt, we talked about kind of the defensive woes. It's been catching, Swayman getting back up to speed. Corpusalo has a nightmare in Florida. A little bit better last night. Just give me some hope here. Is this something where they're just waiting for Swayman to kind of catch up to game speed and he's playing 65 games and
Well, Swayman,
he's back where he's left off?
yes, Swayman's going to play 60 to 65 games. I mean, he's going to have to. I think they can get by like they did last night with Corpusalo or somebody else. But it's going to be a little bit of an issue. I'm just waiting to see at the end of the year if it wears Swayman down because he's never done it. So you don't know that. Like, yeah, playing 60 games, that's great. You got your goalie, you paid him, he's pretty good. Great. Then you're going to win a bunch of games. That's fine. But at the end of the day, is he going to be so worn down at playoff time that it really affects him. So you don't know that. So I still like the idea of Korpisalo, pulling his weight a little more. Last night he had the same kind of game as he did before. Like, he makes a few saves early and you're like, okay, great. And then he lets one in and then he stops tracking the puck, and he laterally, he's just not very good. The
Man,
Makar goal hit the middle of the net. Like, I know it was a seed, but it hit the center of the net. Like, he's just not on his angle. It's really, and he gets down on his knees and slides a little
like
too
got a
much.
brakes problem, man.
Right,
Like,
a little too much.
Hits the brakes at the right time.
Right. And they mentioned it with the Miles Wood breakaway, where if he just waited a minute and let Korpisalo go down, he could have put it under the bar and in for the goal. So that's going to be scouted, and you're going to see a lot of goals over his shoulders as we get going here. I'm hoping that Bob Essenza can fix him, but this is something that's been happening with him for a while. And I don't think he tracks pucks well. I don't think he moves laterally that well. And teams are going to figure that out. So it's going to take a better effort from the defense when he's in net in order for them to win those games and get by. But I'm still worried about the Swayman thing toward the end of the year when he plays 60 games.
A lot of questions that will be arising throughout this season that won't be answered until the end. I lied, because I do want to ask you one more thing before we get you out of here. Thoughts on the sweaters that dropped this morning?
I thought they were kind of similar. Like, I just didn't think they were, they're nice, they're sharp, they pop. And I like them. And I think the Bruins have one of the better sweaters in the league, for sure. And always
tough to go wrong.
Yeah, not right. And I think it's nice. It's not $600 nice, but it's, it's pretty nice. But I thought it was a little underwhelming. I just thought it would be a little different than it was. But I still think the best were last year. I really like those sweaters that they put away last year. I mean, I really like them a lot. They reminded me a little bit more of the 80s teams, and I liked it with a little bit of a snazzy little effect on the sleeves. I kind of like that thing. But I think, it's a nice sweater, and I'm not getting one. So there you go.
They just want another couple $100 out of me.
Oh my goodness! I mean, there's more. They're like the Red Sox with the sweaters. It's just how many colors and how many alternates and how many occasions. I mean,
they're
come
NBAing it. They're making it the
they
NBA.
Are.
Which
they are.
Look, I mean,
if that's what causes the cap to go up, then I guess I'm all for it.
We'll do it.
Right.
But I love those Centennials. I like kind of the exclusivity of it just being 1 year, but I wouldn't have minded if they kept them. I would have liked it.
Yeah, I would have liked it too.
All right, Matt Barry, you need to catch up on some sleep. You guys are doing that
Oh my goodness,
hours of the morning.
We were there till 1:15 last night. No more of those. No more of those, please.
That's because Matt and Smitty do the Bruins Benders post game after every Bruins game. It's on Inside the Rink on YouTube. I think I've tuned in to all of them in one way or another. Some of them in the comments go all the way
Appreciate
through.
That, buddy.
You guys are doing a great job with it. I appreciate you coming on the show as always. I've teased a weekly spot. I think we need to nail that down.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about it. I'll shoot you a DM. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But Matt Barry from the Bruins Benders podcast. Thanks so much again, Matt.
Thanks, brother.
We are Rogue Media Sports.